Weather report puts visibility at near zero in 20 minutes. Standard protocol would scrub this entire operation. Anyone want to explain why we're pushing through? His gaze settled briefly on Maya before returning to his team leader. She still said nothing. The silence over the comms stretched between efficient status checks and mission parameter confirmations. Then the voice came again, addressing the entire team but clearly meant for her. Listen up. This target has evaded 3 previous intercept attempts. High-value intelligence asset with critical information on regional network operations. Extraction window is narrow. Weather systems forcing us to adapt. Stay tight and follow protocol. This isn't a training exercise. Maya adjusted her tactical vest slightly. The motion was economic, without flourish, her eyes remaining focused on the rapidly deteriorating visibility beyond the helicopter frame. She recognized this landscape from satellite imagery and topographic surveys her grandfather had taught her to read, when conventional marksmen would have deemed conditions impossible. There had been a time when these ranges were considered no-go zones for precision operations. Then, methodologies changed. Protocols evolved. Through the window, she watched the sand particles dance in patterns that experienced desert operators learned to read, like weather vanes. She could feel the pressure systems shifting beneath the maelstrom, could anticipate how the particulates would move when the front fully engaged. Someone in the cabin had already marked her loadout as anomalous. A silent chain of reassessment was beginning to form in their expressions, but she couldn't hear it yet. All she knew was that the rifle, custom as it was, would respond to her calculations with precision. The systems were tested. The mathematics sound. The memory carried within her. The sun angled harsh through swirls of sand, casting fragmented shadows across the cabin interior. Her own reflection ghosted in the reinforced glass. From the outside, it would look like standard deployment. From within, it looked like skepticism meeting necessity. Maya reached for her tactical gloves, adjusting the reinforcement along the trigger finger. They were worn but precise. She had broken them in years ago during her first national championship in punishing crosswinds. The gloves, like the rifle, weren't standard issue, but they had performed when it mattered. The team leader spoke again. Final and procedural. All units. Weather conditions approaching critical. Operation timeframe compressed. Asset Reyes. Confirm observation position only. You are not cleared for engagement. Maintain distance from primary team. Report condition changes only. Copy? Maya confirmed with a brief acknowledgement tone. She secured her equipment with practiced efficiency, aware that stenciled in faded gray along her rifle case, the identification R7729M reflected momentarily in the overhead light. None of the operators had examined it closely yet. None had recognized what it represented. She prepared for deployment, unaware that within hours, everything around her would fundamentally change. The air around them had thickened into a pulsing golden haze as the sandstorm fully engulfed their position. The team moved with purpose now, checking equipment, confirming comms functionality, establishing baseline protocols for visibility loss. From a distance, they might have looked like standard operators. From inside the formation, the unspoken tension was palpable. Maya didn't need their approval to be effective. She had never sought it, but even here, surrounded by elite operators who viewed her as an administrative oversight, she maintained focus because professionalism mattered above ego. The rifle responded to her inspection like it had been calibrated specifically for her hands alone. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The equipment didn't advertise itself. The barrel modifications were subtle. Custom fluting, specialized harmonics dampeners, a proprietary rifling pattern developed through hundreds of hours of testing in environments most ballistics experts dismissed as unworkable. The scope appeared conventional until you understood the internal atmospheric sensors and drift compensation algorithms her grandfather had pioneered decades before military adoption. She checked each component methodically. Barrel integrity maintained. Optics secure. Ammunition loaded with hand-measured powder charges. each round tested and selected for consistent performance under environmental stress. The calculations lived in her head now, but she still carried the small field notebook in her breast pocket out of respect. The handwriting had weathered with time. Precise figures and ballistic formulas from another era. Her grandfather's notations, his exact methodology written the week before the demonstration that changed long-range shooting doctrine but remained classified for 20 years. Creased at one corner, stained with range dust and Gulf War sand. She never showed it to others. She just ensured it remained within reach. She verified her equipment one final time. Balance, perfect. Weight distribution, ideal. The rangefinder reported atmospheric conditions through its digital display, information that would be virtually useless to conventional shooters in this weather. The seals adjusted to match the deteriorating conditions. One of them edged closer, eyeing her preparations with muted curiosity. Command said you've got some specialized equipment for these conditions. That true? Or just admin talk to justify bringing a civilian into the mix? Maya secured the final component, her voice level. The equipment is specialized, yes, but it's the methodology that matters in conditions like these. The operator studied her for a moment, professional assessment rather than judgment. These sandstorms have scrubbed every precision operation we've attempted in the region. Visibility drops to nothing. Wind vectors become unpredictable. Even our best shooters can't compensate. She didn't elaborate unnecessarily. Different approach. Different results. On the right tactical vest pocket, a subtle indicator light blinked green. The atmospheric sensors were collecting data, building a progressive environmental model that conventional systems couldn't match. Maya didn't draw attention to it. The technology would speak for itself if needed. At the command center, the mission controller leaned forward with concern. Weather monitoring systems showed rapidly deteriorating conditions across the entire operational zone. Visibility had dropped below minimum safety parameters. Standard procedure would require immediate extraction. Mission postponed. The team leader's voice crackled through with interference from the Sandstorm. Command. Conditions deteriorating beyond predicted models. Visibility approaching zero. Request updated parameters. The controller checked the mission brief again, eyes lingering on an unusual authorization code accompanying the civilian consultant's presence. It wasn't standard protocol. It carried command-level priority, despite the consultant's apparent outsider status. He keyed the response carefully. Team lead, maintain position. Authorization to proceed under Protocol 7729. Consultant asset has operational clearance if conditions meet specialized parameters. The communications officer looked up in confusion. Sir, Protocol 7729 isn't in our standard operating procedures. What classification level is that? It's not classified, the controller replied quietly. It's specialized. There's a difference. The landing zone materialized as a vague depression in the shifting sand landscape. The helicopter descended with careful precision, rotors fighting against the swirling particles that threatened to overwhelm the engines. As the team prepared to disembark, Maya secured her rifle case with calm efficiency. No wasted motion, no hesitation, just purpose. The team leader approached her before they exited, his expression unreadable behind tactical gear. Command had just issued Protocol 7729 clearance. That mean anything to you? She nodded once. It means I'm authorized to operate if conditions match my specifications. And what specifications would those be? Maya met his gaze steadily. The worse the conditions get, the more effective my methodology becomes. Conventional approaches fail when visibility drops below 20%. My system was designed specifically for zero visibility environments. He studied her for a longer moment, professional assessment battling with operational skepticism. We'll stick to the mission plan. You remain at observation distance. If something changes, it comes through me first. The sand hit them like a physical wall as they exited the helicopter. Visibility immediately dropped to less than 50 meters, the world beyond reduced to shifting gold and amber walls. The team moved with practiced formation, communication reduced to essential updates as they navigated toward the target building. Maya maintained her designated position, rifle case now deployed into its operational configuration. The custom stock extended against her shoulder, scope revealing the environment in ways invisible to standard optics. Through specialized filtering and atmospheric modeling, patterns emerged in the chaos. Pressure differentials, particle density variations, subtle indicators that translated into usable data. The team's designated marksman positioned himself on a slight elevation. Conventional rifle braced against the unrelenting storm. He adjusted his scope repeatedly, frustration evident in his posture, as readings fluctuated wildly. Standard ballistic calculations became meaningless in conditions this severe. Lead, overwatch. Visibility compromised completely. No viable shot solution available. Repeat, no shot solution in these conditions. The team leader acknowledged grimly. Copy that. Proceed to contingency approach alpha. Direct action only. Maya monitored the exchange without comment, her own system gathering data continuously. The sandstorm had intensified beyond even her experience, but the principles remained sound. Particles moved according to physics, not randomness. Patterns existed within chaos for those trained to recognize them. The first indication of compromise came with sudden radio silence. The team's forward element had encountered unexpected resistance. Tactical updates became sporadic, then ceased entirely. The mission controller's voice cut through with urgency. Team lead, command. Intelligence indicates target is mobile, moving towards secondary escape route. Asset extraction priority 1. Limited window remaining. The team leader reassessed rapidly, options narrowing with the deteriorating situation. Overwatch position compromised. No visual confirmation possible in these conditions. Direct approach will telegraph our position. It was the mission controller who made the decision. His voice carried the weight of command authorization. Implement Protocol 7729. Full operational clearance for Consultant Reyes. The team leader hesitated only briefly. Reyes, you're up. Show us what this specialized equipment can actually do. Maya moved forward calmly, taking position where the team's marksman had declared conditions impossible. She deployed her rifle with methodical precision, each component locking into place with quiet confidence. The scope activated fully, sensors processing environmental data faster than human perception. The designated marksman shifted beside her, professional curiosity overcoming initial skepticism. What are you seeing that I'm not? There's nothing but sand out there. She adjusted her position slightly, voice steady. I'm not looking at the sand, I'm looking at the patterns within it. The disturbances, the mathematics. Through her specialized optics, the swirling chaos resolved into something else. Data points, movement indicators, subtle pressure variations that conventional systems filtered as noise. She didn't rely solely on visual confirmation. Her system incorporated infrared, barometric, and harmonic inputs that collectively formed a comprehensive model. The rangefinder calculated distance beyond normal parameters, factoring wind vectors that changed every second but followed predictable physical laws. Maya entered final adjustments, her fingers steady against the custom trigger assembly. Target acquired. 3,027 yards, moving west to east. Multiple escorts. Crossing exposed position in approximately 15 seconds. The team leader's voice held disbelief. That's well beyond maximum effective range in ideal conditions. In this storm, it's impossible. Maya didn't argue. She focused on the mathematical certainty her grandfather had taught her to trust above conventional limitations. Permission to engage. There was a brief pause as operational protocols battled with desperate necessity. Then, granted, take the shot if you have it. The team fell silent. A collective breath held in suspense. The sand continued to swirl in violent patterns, visibility reduced to almost nothing beyond a few meters. To conventional observers, the target zone was completely obscured, the shot fundamentally impossible. Maya exhaled slowly, body aligning with the rifle in perfect harmony. Her finger settled against the trigger with measured pressure. The calculations finalized in her mind. Distance, atmospheric resistance, bullet drop, wind drift across varying density zones. She fired once. The rifle responded with a controlled pulse of energy, the suppressed report barely audible above the storm's howl. The custom-loaded round cut through the maelstrom, following a path determined by physics and probability rather than visibility. For 3 eternal seconds, nothing happened. The team remained frozen, waiting. Then the communication channel cracked to life. Forward element, voice tight with controlled astonishment. Target down. Confirmed hit. Clean. How the hell? The transmission cut briefly through interference. Impossible shot. No visual confirmation possible in these conditions. The team leader stared at Maya, reassessment evident in his posture. 3,000 yards. Through a Category 5 sandstorm. Explain. Maya secured her rifle methodically, her movements unhurried. Different approach. Different results. As confirmation reports flooded in, the mission parameters shifted from extraction to secure and retrieve. The team moved with renewed purpose, the earlier skepticism replaced by professional respect. The sandstorm continued unabated, but its power to derail the operation had been neutralized by a single precise intervention. Maya remained in position, maintaining overwatch as the team completed their objective. The rifle rested against her shoulder like an extension of herself, sensors still gathering environmental data, even though its primary purpose had been fulfilled. The designated marksman returned briefly, his posture conveying what words couldn't adequately express. He knelt beside her, examining the rifle with new appreciation. "I've been shooting professionally for 12 years. What you just did violates everything I was taught about physical limitations." She adjusted her scope slightly, still monitoring the team's movements through the storm. Limitations are often methodological, not physical. "That serial number," he said quietly. R7729M. That's Reyes Markov methodology, isn't it? The theoretical approach that DARPA shelved 20 years ago because they couldn't make it work consistently. Maya turned slightly, measuring his recognition. Not theoretical, just ahead of available technology at the time. "Your grandfather," he stated, not asking. "Morgan Reyes. The demonstration at Quantico that no one believed was repeatable. They said it was a fluke. Statistical anomaly." "It wasn't," she replied simply. "He just couldn't teach others fast enough before his methods were classified. The military wanted equipment solutions. He developed a human methodology." The team's extraction proceeded with efficiency born of elite training. The target secured, intelligence intact, mission parameters achieved despite conditions that should have rendered the operation impossible. As they regrouped for helicopter pickup, the team's dynamic had visibly shifted. No one crowded Maya. No one asked unnecessary questions. The respect manifested in the small space they maintained, not distance, but acknowledgement of capability that required no fanfare. The team leader approached as the extraction helicopter's distinct sound penetrated the storm's roar. "Command wants a full debrief on your methodology. They're calling it a breakthrough in adverse condition operations." Maya secured her equipment with the same quiet efficiency she had demonstrated throughout. "The methodology isn't new. The recognition is." "Why didn't you say anything during the briefing about what you could do?" She looked toward the swirling sand that had gone from obstacle to advantage. "Some capabilities aren't meant to be explained. They're meant to be demonstrated." The helicopter descended through the golden haze, rotors fighting the same conditions that had nearly compromised the mission hours earlier. As the team prepared to board, Maya felt the weight of her grandfather's legacy shift slightly. Not lighter, but more balanced, more recognized. The serial number R7729M caught the faint light filtering through the storm, a quiet testament to innovation that had waited a generation to prove its worth. She didn't need validation to know its value. But now others would understand what she had always known. Different approach. Different results. As the helicopter lifted off, cutting through the unrelenting storm with determined purpose, Maya glanced at the small field notebook secure in her vest pocket. Inside, her grandfather's final notation remained. "The storm doesn't hide the target. It simply changes how we must look." She hadn't just honored his methods. She had vindicated them. The sandstorm had finally subsided by the time they reached the forward operating base, leaving behind a landscape transformed by shifted dunes and revealed structures. Maya stood on the tarmac as the helicopter powered down, the world around her painted in stark contrasts of shadow and harsh sunlight. The air tasted of dust and heat, familiar elements that had defined her training since childhood. The base commander approached with purpose. His expression, a careful mask of professional neutrality. Behind him walked two figures in civilian attire, intelligence analysts, based on their posture and the subtle earpieces they wore. Maya recognized the assessment in their gaze. Not judgment, not skepticism, but recalculation, the kind that happens when established parameters suddenly shift. "Ms. Reyes," the commander nodded. "Your shot has generated significant attention at multiple command levels. 3,000 yards through conditions our best systems classified as zero visibility. That changes operational doctrine." Maya acknowledged with a subtle nod, her rifle case held at her side without emphasis. The conditions weren't zero visibility, they were different visibility. 3 independent verification systems confirmed no viable targeting solutions. One analyst added, tablet in hand, displaying atmospheric readouts and trajectory models. "Yet your round hit center mass on a moving target. Command wants to understand how." The team leader who had witnessed her methodology firsthand stepped forward slightly. "Sir, what I observed in the field goes beyond equipment advantages." The consultant demonstrated an integrated approach that fundamentally changes how we operate in extreme conditions. The commander studied Maya more carefully now. "Your grandfather was Morgan Reyes. His work on environmental perception in degraded visual environments was classified after the Gulf War demonstration. Most of us thought those methods died with him." "They didn't die," Maya replied evenly. "They just waited for someone to continue them." The second analyst approached, his demeanor more direct. "We've reviewed mission data. Your targeting solution incorporated variables our current systems don't even measure. That's a significant tactical advantage we need to understand." Maya glanced toward the operations building where the rest of the SEAL team had gathered. Their body language had shifted from the dismissive distance of the initial briefing. Professional curiosity had replaced skepticism. One operator nodded slightly in her direction, a small acknowledgement that carried the weight of earned respect. "The methodology requires both specialized equipment and trained human perception," she explained. "It's not just technology or just intuition. It's integration." The base commander gestured toward a secure briefing room. "We've arranged for a technical debriefing. Your clearance has been upgraded to accommodate full disclosure of your approach. This could change how we operate in environments previously considered non-permissive for precision engagement." As they walked across the sun-baked tarmac, Maya felt the weight of what this recognition meant. Her grandfather had faced skepticism until the end. His methods deemed too unconventional, too reliant on human variables, when the military-industrial complex preferred technological solutions that could be mass-produced and standardized. She had carried his work forward not for recognition, but because she believed in his vision. Inside the operations center, screens displayed satellite imagery of the mission zone. Environmental data scrolled alongside mission timelines. The team had gathered, equipment secured, but minds still processing what they had witnessed. The marksman who had declared conditions impossible stood to one side, his expression thoughtful as he studied ballistic charts that failed to explain her success. The intelligence officer initiated the debrief with clinical precision. "For the record, please explain your targeting methodology under adverse conditions." Maya placed her rifle case on the table and opened it with deliberate care. Inside, the custom system rested in precisely fitted compartments, not just a weapon, but an integrated approach to environmental navigation. "Conventional long-range shooting treats environmental factors as obstacles to be overcome," she began, her voice steady. "My grandfather's methodology treats them as information sources to be interpreted. The Sandstorm wasn't hiding the target. It was revealing movement patterns and pressure differentials that actually enhanced targeting." She removed the custom optics system, allowing the analysts to examine its specialized components. "This scope doesn't just magnify. It processes environmental data through multiple sensing layers: infrared, barometric, particulate density. It creates a composite model that conventional systems filter out as noise." The team's marksman leaned forward with professional interest. "But technology alone doesn't explain that shot." "I had advanced systems too, and I couldn't establish any firing solution." Maya nodded. "The technology is only half the equation. The human operator needs to be trained to interpret the data patterns differently. It's about seeing relationships between environmental factors rather than trying to see through them. She opened a small field notebook, revealing pages of handwritten formulas and observation notes spanning decades. My grandfather developed a mathematical model for environmental interpretation that works counter to conventional wisdom. Instead of filtering out chaos, it uses chaos as the primary information source. The commander studied the notes with growing recognition. I remember discussions about this approach after Desert Storm. Reyes claimed he could place rounds on target in sandstorm conditions when our best systems failed completely. Most thought it was theoretical. It wasn't theoretical, Maya replied. It just required a different kind of training than the military was prepared to implement. Technology solutions scale. Human methodology adaptation takes time. One of the SEALs who had witnessed her shot firsthand spoke up. The conventional approach teaches us that extreme weather degrades capability. You're saying it can enhance it if approached differently. Precisely, Maya confirmed, pulling up environmental data from the mission on a nearby monitor. Look at these particle movement patterns. Conventional systems read this as visual obstruction. But these same patterns create distinct flow signatures around any solid object moving through them. The target actually became more visible, not less, once you know what indicators to track. The intelligence analyst shook his head slightly. This contradicts every established long-range doctrine we've developed. It doesn't contradict it, Maya corrected. It complements it. Different conditions require different approaches. As the technical discussion deepened, Maya demonstrated the integrated methodology her grandfather had pioneered. The harmonization of advanced sensing technology with human pattern recognition skills, developed through thousands of hours of specialized training. She showed them how conventional ballistic calculations became secondary to environmental flow dynamics in extreme conditions, how particle physics principles could be applied to practical field applications. The team listened with growing understanding. What had initially seemed impossible was revealing itself as elegantly logical, not defying physics, but applying it differently. The military abandoned this approach 20 years ago because they couldn't standardize it, the commander observed. Your grandfather insisted the human component was essential, but procurement wanted equipment solutions they could deploy broadly. Maya nodded. He never stopped refining the methodology. After his military contracts ended, he continued development privately. I grew up learning these principles alongside conventional marksmanship. The designated marksman who had declared the conditions impossible studied her custom rifle with new respect. This is why you didn't argue when we dismissed you at the briefing. You knew demonstration would be more convincing than explanation. Some capabilities can't be properly explained without context, she replied. Words without demonstration lead to skepticism. As the debriefing continued, technical specialists arrived to document the methodology in greater detail. Maya's equipment was scanned, her approach recorded, her calculations analyzed by ballistics experts who struggled to reconcile conventional models with her results. Through it all, she maintained the same calm focus that had characterized her operation in the field. The base commander pulled her aside as the technical team worked. His expression had shifted from professional interest to something deeper, recognition of transformation when it appeared. 20 years ago, I was a junior officer when your grandfather conducted his demonstration at Quantico, he admitted quietly. I was among those who questioned whether his results could be replicated consistently. We were wrong. Maya studied him, seeing beyond the rank to the person behind the decision. He never blamed those who couldn't see what he was showing them. He just kept refining his approach, knowing eventually someone would recognize its value. And now that someone is you, he observed, carrying forward what most considered impossible. She glanced toward her rifle, now surrounded by technical specialists documenting every component. Not impossible, just different. The commander followed her gaze. Command wants to establish a training program based on your methodology. They're calling it the Reyes-Markov Integration Protocol. They want you to lead it. Maya hadn't expected this development. Her work had always been private, continued out of respect for her grandfather's vision rather than institutional recognition. The methodology requires time. It's not a quick deployment solution. We understand that now, he replied. That's why they want you. Not just your equipment or your formulas, your approach. As night fell across the desert base, Maya stood alone on the observation deck, watching the stars emerge in a sky washed clean by the departed storm. The air held the lingering scent of sand and heat, familiar elements that had defined her path since childhood. In the distance, the perimeter lights traced the boundary between secured space and open desert, a transition zone between known and unknown. The day had transformed her status from outsider to essential, but that shift mattered less than the recognition of the methodology itself. Her grandfather's work, once dismissed as impractical idealism, had proven its worth in the most demanding conditions. She carried his dog tags in her hand now, the metal warm from her grip, the embossed name and numbers worn smooth from years of touch. Behind her, footsteps approached with military precision. The team leader joined her at the railing, his posture more relaxed than during their first encounter. The technical teams are still trying to process what you showed them today. They keep running simulations that say your shot was impossible. Maya smiled slightly. Their simulations are using the wrong variables. That's what I told them, he agreed. They're trying to force your methodology into conventional frameworks, instead of recognizing it as a fundamentally different approach. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, the vastness of the desert night creating a shared perspective that transcended their different paths. Why did you agree to this mission? He asked finally. You knew how you'd be received. The skepticism, the dismissal. You could have declined. Maya considered the question, her gaze still fixed on the horizon where sand met sky in perfect symmetry. My grandfather used to say that methodologies don't prove themselves. People who believe in them do. And you believed when no one else did. I believed because I saw the results firsthand, she corrected. I grew up watching him place shots that conventional wisdom said couldn't be done. I didn't need institutional validation to know the approach was sound. The team leader nodded slowly. Most of us are trained to trust systems over instinct. Your approach integrates both in ways we're not accustomed to considering. That's why it works, Maya replied. The technology enhances human perception rather than trying to replace it. The storm becomes information instead of obstruction. From the operations building, lights still burned as teams worked to document and analyze her methodology. Satellite communications linked the forward base to command structures eager to understand the tactical advantage her approach offered. A paradigm was shifting, not because of theoretical arguments, but because of demonstrated results. Command has authorized a full integration protocol, the team leader informed her. They want to develop a specialized unit trained in your methodology for operations in extreme conditions. They're calling it Project Sandstorm. Maya turned to face him directly. And you? What do you think about that? I think, he said carefully, that I witnessed something today that changes how we approach impossible scenarios. I think 20 years is too long for an advantage like this to remain unrecognized. And I think your grandfather would be proud to see his work continued with such precision. She felt the weight of the dog tags in her palm, the physical connection to the legacy she carried. He always said recognition would come when the need was great enough. That capability proves itself when conventional approaches fail completely. He was right, the team leader acknowledged. Today proved that beyond any doubt. As they spoke, the base shift changed. Personnel moved with purpose between buildings, the rhythm of operations continuing regardless of philosophical transformations. Maya watched them with quiet appreciation for the professionalism that defined their world, a world she had orbited but never fully joined until now. The technical teams want to begin integration testing tomorrow, the team leader continued. They've requested your participation in establishing baseline protocols for the training program. Your methodology will become doctrine. Maya nodded slightly. I'll help them understand the principles. But they need to recognize this isn't just about equipment specifications or ballistic formulas. It's about perception training and environmental relationship. I've made that clear in my mission report, he assured her. This isn't a technology we can simply deploy. It's an approach we need to cultivate. Inside the operations center, specialists continued analyzing her equipment and methodology long into the night. Engineers debated integration pathways. Ballistics experts reconsidered fundamental assumptions about environmental factors. Training coordinators drafted preliminary protocols for identifying candidates with the necessary aptitude. Maya's single demonstration had catalyzed a cascade of reconsideration, not because she had defied physics, but because she had applied it differently when conventional approaches reached their limitations. The impossible shot had become a possible methodology. Dawn broke across the desert with characteristic suddenness, the horizon transforming from deep blue to brilliant gold as the sun reclaimed its domain. Maya stood on the range where a specialized testing area had been established overnight. Technical teams had worked through darkness to prepare verification protocols and instrumentation. The custom rifle rested in her hands with familiar balance. The optics gathered environmental data continuously, building the integrated picture that conventional systems couldn't assemble. Downrange, targets had been positioned at extreme distances, environmental generators creating artificial sandstorm conditions to replicate the previous day's operation. Command representatives stood behind barriers, expressions neutral but attention absolute. This wasn't a demonstration to convince skeptics anymore. It was the foundation of a new operational capability they intended to develop systematically. The team leader approached as she completed her equipment verification. They've recreated yesterday's conditions as closely as possible. Same visibility limitations, same wind vectors, similar particulate density. Not the same, Maya corrected gently. Similar. Environmental conditions are never identical. That's why the human component matters. Adaptation to minute variations that automated systems can't process quickly enough. He nodded. I've explained that. They understand this isn't just about replicating equipment. It's about developing perception. As the artificial storm generators engaged, swirling sand into controlled patterns that obscured conventional visibility completely, Maya felt a sense of completion. Her grandfather's methodology had waited a generation to find its place. Not because it wasn't valid, but because institutional readiness required demonstrated need. The command representative signaled readiness. Ms. Reyes, we're prepared for verification series. Target 1 is positioned at 2,800 yards in zero visibility conditions. Whenever you're ready. Maya adjusted her position slightly, the rifle settling against her shoulder like a natural extension. The optics revealed what conventional systems couldn't. Patterns within chaos, movement signatures, pressure differentials that created a comprehensive environmental map. She fired once. The impact sensor registered a center mass hit within milliseconds. The command representative nodded with professional approval. Target 2 is positioned at 3,100 yards. Moving pattern Bravo initiated. Again, Maya acquired, calculated, and engaged with methodical precision. Again, the sensors confirmed what conventional doctrine said was impossible. Target after target, distance increasing, conditions intensifying. Maya demonstrated not just accuracy, but consistency. Not mechanical repetition, but adaptive engagement with changing environmental factors. The methodology proved itself not through argument but through results. The team leader stood beside the command representatives, watching as years of established limitations were systematically redefined. This changes everything about how we approach adverse condition operations. Not everything, the commander replied thoughtfully. It changes how we perceive limitations. The physics hasn't changed. Our relationship to it has. As the verification series concluded, Maya secured her equipment with the same quiet efficiency that characterized her approach. No flourish, no emphasis, just precision. The technical teams converged, data tablets displaying confirmation statistics that validated every aspect of her methodology. The command representative approached with newfound respect evident in his posture. Ms. Reyes, the verification results exceed all operational parameters. Command has authorized immediate implementation of the Reyes-Markov integration protocol as a specialized capability development program. We would like you to lead its establishment. Maya considered the offer thoughtfully. My grandfather tried for years to gain acceptance for this methodology within conventional military structures. What's different now? Results, he replied simply. Yesterday, you accomplished what our best systems classified as impossible. That creates institutional readiness that didn't exist before. She nodded slowly. I'll establish the foundation. But understand that this isn't just equipment that can be replicated. It's a human technology integration approach that requires both components to function optimally. We understand that now, he assured her. That's precisely why we need you. The team that had once viewed her with skepticism now stood differently, not distant, but aligned. The marksman who had declared conditions impossible approached with professional respect. "I've been shooting competitively and operationally for 12 years, he said quietly. "What you've demonstrated forces me to reconsider fundamental assumptions about environmental limitations. I'd like to learn." Maya recognized the significance of this shift, not grudging acceptance, but genuine professional recognition of capability that transcended conventional boundaries. Different approach. Different results. As the sun climbed higher in the desert sky, casting shortened shadows across equipment and personnel, Maya felt the weight of her grandfather's legacy settle into its rightful place, not as a historical footnote or classified curiosity, but as an operational reality that would save lives in conditions previously deemed impossible. She carried his dog tags in her pocket now, the metal warm against her leg. His vision hadn't required validation to be true, but its recognition meant others would benefit from what he had pioneered and she had perfected. The serial number R7729M no longer represented an abandoned methodology. It had become the foundation of a new operational doctrine. Different approach. Different results. A legacy continued not through words but through demonstration, just as he would have wanted it. 6 weeks later, Maya stood before 20 hand-picked candidates in a specialized training facility, constructed specifically for the Reyes-Markov integration protocol. The room hummed with expectation and uncertainty. These operators represented the elite of their respective units, yet each understood they were stepping into methodologies that contradicted their foundational training. The facility itself reflected this balance between conventional approach and innovative methodology. One wall displayed traditional ballistic tables and atmospheric charts. The opposite featured dynamic flow visualization screens and particle physics models rarely seen outside theoretical research laboratories. The contrast was deliberate, a physical manifestation of the paradigm shift Maya had been tasked with implementing. "You've all been selected based on your exceptional records in conventional marksmanship," she began, her voice carrying the quiet confidence of someone who had proven her approach beyond argument. "What you'll learn here requires something different, not abandoning those skills, but building a complementary perception framework that functions when conventional methods reach their limitations." The operators studied her with professional assessment. Some displayed subtle skepticism, others genuine curiosity. All carried the posture of individuals who had pushed conventional boundaries and were prepared to explore beyond them. A senior instructor from Naval Special Warfare stepped forward, his presence lending institutional authority to Maya's program. "Let me be clear about expectations. This isn't a standard qualification course. Some of you won't adapt to these methodologies, and that's not failure, it's specialization. We're looking for specific perceptual capabilities that complement technological integration." Maya activated the central display, revealing environmental simulation models unlike anything in standard training protocols. Conventional marksmanship teaches you to overcome environmental factors. This methodology teaches you to use them as information sources. The difference is fundamental. She moved to a equipment rack where 20 modified rifle systems waited. Each bore the distinctive integration components that characterized her approach: specialized optics, atmospheric sensors, and custom harmonics dampeners that conventional designers had dismissed as unnecessary complexity. "These systems won't make impossible shots possible on their own," she explained, lifting one for demonstration. "They're tools that extend perception, not replacements for human judgment." The integration point between technology and operator is where this methodology distinguishes itself. One candidate, a veteran SEAL with extensive combat experience, studied the rifle with professional interest. "The optics look like conventional design with additional processing layers. What exactly are they capturing that standard systems miss?" "They don't just capture different data," Maya clarified. "They process environmental information differently. Conventional systems filter chaos. These systems analyze pattern relationships within chaos." Another operator leaned forward. "The mission report said you placed a shot at 3,000 yards through a Category 5 Sandstorm. That violates established physical limitations." "It doesn't violate physics," Maya corrected gently. "It applies physics differently. The Sandstorm wasn't obscuring the target. It was revealing movement patterns and pressure differentials that enhanced targeting once properly interpreted." The skepticism in some expressions didn't bother her. She had expected it, not from arrogance or dismissal, but from professional training that had established firm boundaries around what was considered possible. Those boundaries weren't arbitrary. They were based on decades of operational experience. Challenging them required demonstration, not argumentation. Rather than telling you how this works, I'll show you, she decided, moving toward the environmental simulation chamber. Each of you will observe two targeting scenarios, one using conventional approaches, one using Reyes-Markov integration. The difference will be immediately apparent. The chamber activated, generating a controlled dust storm that reduced visibility to near zero by conventional standards. Target silhouettes appeared at varying distances, moving in unpredictable patterns. Maya lifted her rifle, allowing the specialized optics to gather environmental data. On the external monitors, candidates watched as conventional visual feeds showed nothing but swirling particulates, a complete targeting loss. Simultaneously, the integration system revealed something entirely different. Distinct movement patterns, pressure variations, and thermal differentials that collectively created a comprehensive targeting solution despite visual obscurity. Maya engaged 5 targets in rapid succession. The impact sensors registered precise hits on each, confirming what conventional doctrine classified as impossible. She didn't speak during the demonstration. The results communicated more effectively than explanations could. When she emerged from the chamber, the atmosphere had shifted perceptibly. Skepticism hadn't disappeared, but it had transformed into professional curiosity, the natural response of specialists encountering capability beyond established parameters. The distinction isn't about better equipment, she emphasized, securing her rifle with practiced efficiency. It's about relationship with environmental factors. What conventional approaches treat as obstacles, this methodology treats as information. The senior instructor nodded approval. This program exists because Ms. Reyes demonstrated operational capability that fundamentally changes how we approach adverse conditions. Your task is to determine if you can adapt to these methodologies and expand our operational parameters. As the formal briefing concluded, candidates moved to examine the specialized equipment more closely. Some asked technical questions about sensor capabilities and integration algorithms. Others studied the environmental simulation models with intense focus. All recognized they stood at the edge of a significant doctrinal shift. Maya spoke with candidates individually, assessing not just their technical questions but their perceptual frameworks. Some approached the methodology as a technological solution to be mastered. Others immediately grasped the deeper principle that human pattern recognition capabilities, when properly trained and technologically extended, could function where pure technology or pure human skill would fail independently. The veteran SEAL who had questioned the optics design earlier approached with more directed interest. Your grandfather developed this methodology during Desert Storm, right? The stories about impossible shots under impossible conditions. Those were real? Maya nodded. Real, but not fully understood at the time. The military wanted equipment solutions they could mass deploy. He insisted the human perception component was equally essential. That created an integration gap that took 20 years to bridge. And you bridged it, he observed, carrying forward what others dismissed. I continued it, she corrected gently, not because I needed institutional validation, but because I knew it worked. The validation came when conventional approaches reached their absolute limitations. As candidates dispersed to begin the intensive 3-month integration training, Maya felt a quiet satisfaction watching their posture and engagement. These weren't individuals seeking shortcuts or technological advantages. They were professionals dedicated to expanding capability boundaries, exactly the mindset her grandfather had sought decades earlier. The senior instructor rejoined her as the training bay cleared. Initial assessment: 8 show immediate perceptual adaptation potential, she replied. 7 will require fundamental perspective shifts but display the necessary cognitive flexibility. 5 are approaching this as pure technology rather than integration methodology. He nodded. That matches our preliminary profiles. How do you plan to address the perception barriers? Not by telling them they're wrong, Maya said thoughtfully. By demonstrating why integration matters through progressive failure points in conventional approaches. Experience is more convincing than explanation. The following weeks transformed the training facility into a laboratory of perception development. Maya established progressive challenges that systematically revealed the limitations of conventional methodologies while introducing integration alternatives. Each candidate progressed at their own pace, some adapting quickly to the new perceptual framework, others struggling to release deeply ingrained technical assumptions. The environmental simulation chambers became increasingly complex, generating conditions that conventional systems classified as completely non-permissive for precision operations. Visibility reduction, unpredictable wind vectors, atmospheric disturbance patterns, each designed not to test equipment tolerance but to develop human technology integration under stress. Maya worked with candidates individually, recognizing that the methodology required personalized adaptation rather than standardized training. Some grasped the mathematical relationships intuitively. Others required visualization techniques to transition from conventional targeting models to environmental flow dynamics. All confronted the fundamental challenge, learning to trust a different relationship with chaos. During the third week, a breakthrough moment occurred during a particularly demanding simulation. Lieutenant Commander Jackson, one of the initially skeptical operators, had been struggling with the transition between conventional calculation and integrated perception. His technical skills were exceptional, but the perceptual framework remained elusive. Inside the simulation chamber, conditions had been programmed to replicate a Category 4 sandstorm with microbursts and thermal inversions, conditions where conventional targeting became mathematically impossible due to unpredictable variable interaction. Jackson had repeatedly attempted to apply modified conventional approaches without success. Maya observed from the control room as he entered the chamber again, his posture revealing frustration but determined focus. This time, she noticed a subtle shift in his approach. Rather than fighting the environmental chaos, he allowed the sensory input to flow without immediate calculation. His breathing pattern changed. His stance softened slightly. On the monitoring systems, his targeting approach transformed. Instead of isolating variables and calculating compensation factors individually, he began processing relationship patterns. His scope movements became fluid rather than incremental. He was seeing differently, not looking through chaos but understanding its structure. When he fired, the round struck center mass on a target conventional systems couldn't even detect. The second and third shots confirmed it wasn't accidental precision. He had crossed the perception threshold. As he exited the chamber, Jackson's expression combined professional satisfaction with genuine wonder. I stopped trying to see the target and started seeing the patterns. The sand wasn't hiding information. It was the information. Maya nodded. That's the fundamental shift. Environmental factors aren't obstacles to be overcome. They're information sources to be interpreted. My entire career has been about precision despite conditions, he acknowledged. This is precision because of conditions. The distinction changes everything. This pattern repeated across the candidate group as each found their own transition point between conventional approach and integrated perception. The methodology wasn't eliminating their established skills. It was complementing them with an alternative framework that functioned where conventional approaches reached their limitations. By the sixth week, 12 candidates had demonstrated consistent application of the methodology under increasingly extreme conditions. Their performance metrics redefined operational parameters for precision engagement in environments previously classified as non-permissive. What began as specialized training was becoming validated doctrine. The program attracted attention at the highest command levels. Admiral Harrison, Director of Special Operations Capability Development, arrived unannounced to observe training progression personally. His presence carried the weight of institutional evaluation. This wasn't casual interest, but strategic assessment of capability integration. Maya briefed him with characteristic precision, focusing on demonstrated results rather than theoretical potential. The methodology consistently enables precision engagement in conditions conventional systems classify as non-permissive. Operators are achieving 78% first-round hit probability at extreme distances through visual obscuration that renders standard approaches completely ineffective. The Admiral studied the performance metrics with experienced assessment. These results exceed expectations by significant margins. What's your evaluation of full deployment potential? The methodology isn't universally applicable, Maya replied honestly. It requires specific perceptual capabilities and extensive integration training. Approximately 30% of candidates demonstrate the necessary adaptation potential. But for those who do, operational parameters expand dramatically in extreme conditions. Quote, specialized capability rather than general deployment, he nodded. That aligns with our preliminary assessment. The question becomes optimal implementation structure. They observed the afternoon training session from the control center. Candidates rotated through progressively complex environmental challenges, each designed to develop specific integration skills. The Admiral watched with particular interest as operators engaged targets through conditions that conventional doctrine classified as absolutely non-permissive. "Your grandfather tried to implement this methodology 20 years ago," he noted quietly. "I was a junior officer when his demonstration was classified as a statistical anomaly rather than reproducible capability." "We were wrong." Maya glanced at him with newfound understanding. "You were there?" Quantico, the demonstration that Command refused to believe despite the evidence. Morgan Reyes placed 7 consecutive rounds on target, through conditions our best systems classified as impossible. When he couldn't immediately teach others to replicate his results, the methodology was shelved rather than developed. "He never stopped refining it," Maya said. "Even after the military contracts ended, he believed integration was the future of precision operations in extreme environments." "He was right," the Admiral acknowledged. 2 decades ahead of institutional readiness, but right. And now you've validated his approach beyond any reasonable doubt." As the demonstration concluded, the Admiral made his decision. "I'm authorizing establishment of a dedicated extreme conditions precision unit incorporating the Reyes-Markov methodology as core doctrine. This capability addresses critical operational gaps in environments previously considered non-permissive." Maya hadn't expected this level of institutional commitment. Her focus had remained on methodology development rather than organizational structure. "Full unit authorization requires significant resource allocation. Resources follow demonstrated capability," he replied simply. "What you've established here changes operational parameters across multiple theaters. That justifies dedicated structure and development pathways. The implications extended beyond equipment or training programs. This represented formal recognition of an approach that had once been dismissed as theoretical. A full doctrinal integration of methodology her grandfather had pioneered against institutional resistance." As the Admiral departed, Maya remained in the observation bay, watching candidates continue their training evolution with growing proficiency. The methodology wasn't just being validated, it was being embraced as essential capability by the very institutions that had once rejected it. The senior instructor joined her, data tablet displaying the day's performance metrics. "Command authorization for full unit establishment changes everything. This isn't experimental anymore. It's operational doctrine." Maya nodded. "My grandfather always said capability proves itself when the need becomes undeniable." He believed in the methodology even when no one else did, because he had seen it work firsthand. "And now others have seen it too," he observed. "Not through arguments or theoretical models, but through demonstrated results under conditions previously considered impossible." The following morning, Maya stood on the range watching the desert sunrise paint the landscape in graduated amber and gold. The air carried the distinct scent of sand and heat, familiar elements that had defined her development pathway. She held her grandfather's dog tags in her palm, the metal warming slowly with the rising sun. Jackson approached respectfully, his posture reflecting the transformation these weeks had created. No longer skeptical, no longer constrained by conventional limitations, but balanced between established skill and expanded perception. "Command briefed us on the unit authorization," he said. "This methodology is becoming official doctrine. Your grandfather's work and yours. It's changing how we approach operational limitations." Maya nodded slightly. "Different approach. Different results." "Why did you continue his work?" Jackson asked. "After the military rejected it, after the skepticism and dismissal. What made you believe when no one else did?" She considered the question thoughtfully, watching the light transform the landscape around them. "I believed because I had seen the results firsthand. Institutional validation wasn't necessary for me to know the approach was sound." "But you pursued that validation anyway," he observed. "You demonstrated the methodology under operational conditions instead of continuing it privately." "Because capability only matters when it serves purpose," she replied. "My grandfather developed this approach to expand operational parameters in conditions where conventional methods failed completely. That purpose required institutional integration eventually." Jackson nodded slowly. "The approach changes more than targeting capability. It changes how we perceive limitations themselves. What we considered impossible wasn't physically impossible. It was methodologically inaccessible." This insight reflected the deeper transformation Maya had hoped to cultivate, not just technical adaptation, but perceptual evolution. The methodology wasn't simply an alternative approach to extreme condition operations. It represented a fundamental shift in relationship with environmental factors previously considered obstacles. As candidates assembled for the day's training evolution, Maya recognized the significance of what had been established. Her grandfather's methodology, once dismissed as impractical idealism, had become the foundation for operational capability that expanded mission parameters across multiple theaters. The serial number R7729M no longer represented abandoned innovation. It had become organizational doctrine. "We're scheduled for joint operations verification next week," Jackson informed her. "Command wants documented capability demonstration under actual field conditions. They're calling it Operation Sandstorm." Maya allowed herself a small smile at the designation. Appropriate name. The verification operation would formalize what she had already demonstrated. That conditions previously classified as non-permissive could become operational advantages when approached with integrated methodology, not because physical laws had changed, but because perception frameworks had evolved. As training resumed, she watched the candidates with quiet satisfaction. Each represented the continuation of work her grandfather had begun decades earlier, work that had waited for institutional readiness to match its potential. The methodology hadn't needed validation to be valid, but its recognition meant expanded operational capability, where lives depended on precision under impossible conditions. The desert sun climbed higher, casting shortened shadows across the training facility as candidates rotated through increasingly complex environmental challenges. Maya secured her grandfather's dog tags in her pocket, their presence a reminder of innovation that persisted despite skepticism, of methodology that waited for demonstration to prove its worth. Different approach, different results. A legacy continued not through institutional authority, but through undeniable capability demonstrated when conventional methods reached their absolute limitations. Just as he would have wanted it. The call came on a Wednesday afternoon, clear and urgent. A reconnaissance team had gone silent during critical intelligence gathering near the eastern ridge of the Balad mountain range. Satellite communication had been severed by a massive sandstorm that meteorological systems classified as unprecedented in both scope and intensity. Drone deployment had failed. Conventional air support couldn't penetrate the environmental barrier. The team was effectively stranded with no extraction pathway. Newly established Extreme Conditions Precision Unit received the alert first. The situation parameters matched their specialized capability profile precisely. Maya studied the mission brief with focused attention, meteorological readings confirming what conventional systems would classify as absolutely non-permissive conditions. The sandstorm's particle density exceeded all previous operational records, creating what standard doctrine considered an impenetrable barrier. Commander Jackson approached as she analyzed the environmental data. "Command has authorized immediate deployment. The reconnaissance team has critical intelligence that needs extraction before hostile elements converge on their position. Conventional approaches have been exhausted." Maya nodded. "The conditions are severe, but workable under our methodology. Particle density patterns actually create enhanced signature recognition opportunities if properly interpreted." "This isn't a training evolution anymore," Jackson reminded her. "Real lives, real intelligence, real-world application of methodology that's still classified as experimental by conventional standards." "The methodology was never experimental," Maya corrected gently. "Just waiting for the right conditions to demonstrate its validity." The operations center hummed with focused efficiency as the specialized team prepared for deployment. Equipment verification proceeded with meticulous precision, not just technical inspection, but integrated calibration between human operators and advanced systems. Each team member had been selected and trained specifically for conditions where conventional approaches reached their absolute limitations. Maya secured her custom rifle system with practiced movements, each component verified against environmental parameters they would face. The stock extension locked precisely against her shoulder measurement. Optics activated with specialized atmospheric calibration protocols. The balance felt like a natural extension of her posture rather than equipment to be managed. The mission commander entered final coordination parameters with conventional support elements. "Maya, you'll be primary precision elements supported by Jackson and Rodriguez. Your engagement window will be extremely limited. The recon team is pinned in a narrow ravine, with hostile forces converging from multiple directions. They can't move without compromise, and we can't extract without precision intervention first. She acknowledged the parameters with professional focus. What's the specific objective? The recon team identified a high-value target coordinating regional operations. They've confirmed location but can't engage without revealing their position. Your team needs to neutralize 4 security elements simultaneously to create an extraction window. Distance approximately 2,800 yards through the most severe sandstorm conditions ever recorded in operational theater. Maya processed this without visible reaction. Conventional doctrine would classify the mission as physically impossible. Under Reyes-Markov methodology, it represented exactly the conditions the approach had been developed to address. Time to deployment? She asked. 30 minutes. Transport is being prepared with modified environmental shielding. You'll be inserted at the optimal distance vector for your approach, but visibility will be effectively 0 by conventional standards. As the team completed final preparations, Admiral Harrison entered the operations center. His presence wasn't ceremonial. This mission represented the first full operational deployment of capability he had personally authorized based on Maya's demonstration. He approached without disrupting the team's focus. "Ms. Reyes," he acknowledged, "this operation represents exactly the scenario your grandfather's methodology was developed to address. Conditions that conventional approaches classify as impenetrable." Maya secured her equipment with calm efficiency. The conditions aren't impenetrable. They're information-rich when properly interpreted. He nodded. That perspective shift is precisely what creates capability where none existed before. Your grandfather understood that 20 years before institutional readiness caught up. He developed the methodology because he believed no operational environment should leave our people stranded without support, Maya replied. The approach was always about expanding capability when conventional methods reached their limitations. The Admiral studied her with thoughtful assessment. This mission goes beyond methodology validation. It represents doctrinal integration of an approach once considered impossible. Whatever happens today, that achievement stands. Maya appreciated his perspective, but her focus remained operational rather than historical. Lives depended on capability, not recognition. She completed equipment verification with methodical precision. Each component checked against environmental specifications they would encounter. The transport helicopter powered up on the landing pad, rotors cutting through dry desert air with mechanical persistence. The specialized team moved with coordinated purpose, equipment secured, communications verified, methodology integrated into their operational posture. This wasn't experimental anymore. It was doctrine in action. Maya boarded without hesitation, taking position with her rifle system secured beside her. Jackson and Rodriguez settled into complementary positions, their specialized equipment similarly configured for extreme condition operation. None spoke unnecessarily. Professional focus had replaced the need for reassurance. The helicopter lifted off, banking toward the eastern horizon where meteorological systems showed the sandstorm intensifying beyond all previous records. From a distance it appeared as a massive wall of amber and gold, churning with relentless energy, completely obscuring the landscape beneath. By conventional assessment, it represented an absolute operational barrier. Through the specialized optics, Maya observed something different. Not chaotic obstruction, but complex flow patterns revealing pressure differentials and movement signatures that conventional systems filtered as noise. The storm wasn't hiding the operational theater. It was mapping it in different parameters. As they approached the deployment zone, the helicopter pilot's voice carried tension despite professional control. "Ma'am, conditions are deteriorating beyond predicted models. Visibility approaching 0. Standard protocol would abort insertion immediately." Maya checked final atmospheric readings through her specialized equipment. "Proceed with insertion. The conditions are severe but workable under our methodology." "Copy that," the pilot acknowledged. "You're the experts on this one. We'll get you as close as possible to optimal position." The helicopter descended through the outer edge of the storm, frames shuddering against powerful crosscurrents that threatened stability. Conventional instruments fluctuated wildly, unable to establish reliable navigation parameters. The pilot relied on modified guidance systems specifically calibrated for extreme conditions. 2 minutes to insertion, he announced. "Beyond this point, we lose reliable navigation capability." You'll be on your own until extraction. Maya secured her equipment for deployment, Jackson and Rodriguez mirroring her movements with synchronized efficiency. The team had trained for precisely these conditions, not fighting against environmental factors, but utilizing them as operational parameters. The landing zone materialized as a vague depression in the swirling chaos, barely visible even through specialized systems. The helicopter touched down briefly, just long enough for the team to disembark with equipment. The moment they cleared the frame, the aircraft lifted away, disappearing rapidly into the swirling maelstrom. Environmental immersion was immediate and absolute. The sandstorm enveloped them completely, visibility reduced to what conventional systems would register as zero. Particles whipped past with physical force. The air itself transformed into a medium with nearly liquid properties. Maya activated her specialized equipment, the integrated system revealing what conventional optics couldn't: distinct flow patterns, pressure differentials, and movement signatures that collectively formed a comprehensive environmental map, despite visual obscurity. System active, she confirmed. Environmental modeling building. Movement signatures detected at 275 degrees, approximately 3,000 yards. Jackson verified through his complementary systems. Confirmed. Multiple signatures matching known hostile movement patterns. They're converging on the ravine position from 3 vectors. Rodriguez established perimeter security while Maya configured the precision system for optimal environmental integration. The specialized optics processed multiple data inputs simultaneously: infrared signatures, barometric pressure variations, particle density patterns that revealed subtle disturbances created by movement through the storm. Command: Precision Team, Maya transmitted. We're in position. Environmental modeling complete. Conditions classified as severe but workable. Request direct communication with reconnaissance element. The response came through with surprising clarity, the specialized communication system filtering environmental interference. Precision Team, this is Reconnaissance Actual. We're pinned in the eastern section of the ravine, hostile forces converging from multiple directions. Visibility 0. No extraction pathway available under conventional parameters. Maya confirmed position coordinates through her integrated system. Reconnaissance Actual, this is Precision Lead. We have your position. Preparing to establish extraction corridor through precision intervention. Stand by. She configured the rifle system for optimal environmental integration, each adjustment calibrated specifically for the conditions surrounding them. The scope revealed patterns invisible to conventional systems: thermal variations, pressure differentials, particle flow disruptions that indicated movement through the storm. 4 primary targets identified, she reported. Security elements establishing containment perimeter around reconnaissance position. Range 2,820 yards through maximum density zone. Jackson's voice reflected professional assessment rather than doubt. Conventional systems would classify that as physically impossible in these conditions. Different approach. Different results, Maya replied simply. She settled into optimal firing position, the rifle integrated against her body with practiced precision. The environmental model continued building in her specialized optics, revealing movement patterns through the storm that conventional systems would filter as meaningless noise. The mathematics finalized in her perception: distance, atmospheric resistance, bullet drop, wind vector analysis across variable density zones. Not calculation in conventional terms, but integrated environmental relationship that her grandfather had pioneered and she had perfected. Command: Precision Lead. I have firing solution for all 4 targets. Preparing simultaneous neutralization to create extraction corridor. The acknowledgement came with subdued professional recognition. Precision Lead Command. You are cleared to engage. Be advised, conventional support elements still classify conditions as non-permissive. You're operating beyond established operational parameters. Maya didn't respond to that assessment. The parameters had already shifted. The methodology had already proven itself. Now lives depended on capability that institutional doctrine was still integrating. She exhaled slowly, her perception fully integrated with the environmental model. The rifle settled against her with perfect balance, the optics revealing what conventional systems couldn't, distinct signatures of the security elements converging on the stranded reconnaissance team. She fired in controlled sequence, each round calibrated specifically for the environmental zone it would traverse. The suppressed reports barely registered against the storm's constant roar, the custom-loaded ammunition cutting through particle-dense atmosphere with calculated precision. The confirmation came after 4 eternal seconds. Targets neutralized. Confirmed precision intervention. All security elements down simultaneously. Maya secured her position, already scanning for secondary threats through the specialized system. Extraction corridor established. Reconnaissance team has limited window for movement to secondary position. Coordinates transmitting now. The extraction sequence initiated with coordinated efficiency. The reconnaissance team moved through the newly established corridor, protected by precision capability that conventional doctrine had classified as impossible in these conditions. Not fighting against the environment, but utilizing it as operational advantage through integrated methodology. As the extraction helicopter approached through the storm's outer boundary, Maya maintained overwatch position, her specialized system continuously monitoring environmental patterns for threat indicators. The storm hadn't abated. If anything, it had intensified beyond all previous records. Yet through integrated methodology, it had become navigable rather than impenetrable. The reconnaissance team reached the extraction point with the critical intelligence intact, their movement covered by precision capability that conventional systems couldn't deliver. As they boarded the helicopter under Maya's protective overwatch, the mission transformed from desperate hope to operational success. Maya secured her position only when the extraction was confirmed complete. The team regrouped with practiced efficiency, equipment protected against the relentless environmental assault. As they prepared for their own extraction, Jackson approached through the swirling chaos, his expression visible only through specialized optics. "Command confirms complete mission success," he reported. "Intelligence secured, reconnaissance team extracted, no casualties. They're calling it unprecedented capability demonstration, under conditions previously classified as absolutely non-permissive." Maya secured her rifle with the same methodical precision she applied to all operational aspects. Not unprecedented, just underutilized until now. The extraction helicopter descended through the storm boundary, navigation systems guided by the team's specialized environmental mapping rather than conventional parameters. As they boarded for return, Maya felt the weight of operational validation settle into proper perspective. Her grandfather's methodology hadn't just been proven theoretically valid, it had saved lives when conventional approaches reached their absolute limitations. Back at Operations Center, the mission debrief proceeded with focused efficiency. Technical teams analyzed performance metrics against environmental conditions that standard doctrine classified as impossible for precision operations. The results weren't just impressive, they were transformative. Admiral Harrison reviewed the operational data personally, his expression reflecting professional assessment rather than surprise. The methodology performed exactly as demonstrated in training evolution, but under significantly more severe conditions. This represents capability expansion beyond anything previously considered operationally viable. The mission commander nodded agreement. Conventional doctrine classified those conditions as absolute operational barriers. The Reyes-Markov methodology transformed them into workable parameters. That changes everything about how we approach extreme condition operations. Maya listened without comment. The methodology didn't need institutional validation to be valid, but its operational recognition meant expanded capability where lives depended on precision under impossible conditions. Her grandfather had understood this decades before institutional readiness caught up with his vision. As the formal debrief concluded, Admiral Harrison approached Maya directly. His posture conveyed professional respect without unnecessary ceremony. 20 years ago, your grandfather demonstrated capability that institutional doctrine wasn't prepared to integrate. Today, that same methodology saved lives and secured critical intelligence under conditions previously considered absolutely non-permissive. Maya acknowledged with quiet confidence. He always believed capability would be recognized when the need became undeniable. The methodology wasn't theoretical. It just waited for demonstration under conditions where conventional approaches reached their limitations. And now it's established doctrine, Harrison confirmed. The Extreme Conditions Precision Unit has been granted permanent operational status with expanded development authorization. This isn't experimental anymore. It's essential capability. The following morning, Maya stood on the observation deck, watching the desert landscape transform with changing light. The air carried the scent of sand and heat, familiar elements that had defined her development pathway since childhood. In the distance, the storm had finally subsided, leaving behind a landscape reshaped by its passage. She held her grandfather's dog tags in her palm, the metal warm against her skin. His vision hadn't required institutional validation to be true, but its recognition meant others would benefit from what he had pioneered against significant resistance. The methodology that once faced skepticism and dismissal had become a central doctrine, precisely when operational necessity demanded capability beyond conventional limitations. Jackson joined her, his posture reflecting the transformation these months had created, no longer approaching the methodology as experimental, but as established capability that expanded operational parameters in ways previously considered impossible. Command just authorized 3 additional training cycles, he informed her. They're expanding the program based on yesterday's operational validation. What began as specialized capability is becoming integrated doctrine across multiple operational theaters. Maya nodded slightly. My grandfather would be pleased, not because of institutional recognition, but because the methodology is saving lives when conventional approaches reach their limitations. Why did he persist? Jackson asked. After the military rejected his approach, after the skepticism and dismissal, what made him continue refining methodology that no one believed in? She considered the question thoughtfully, watching the morning light transform the landscape around them. He believed capability matters more than recognition. The methodology wasn't about institutional validation. It was about expanding operational parameters when lives depended on precision under impossible conditions. And now it's doing exactly that, Jackson observed, not as experimental capability, but as established doctrine. Maya secured the dog tags in her pocket, their presence a physical connection to innovation that had persisted despite skepticism. Different approach, different results. As the sun climbed higher in the desert sky, casting shortened shadows across the base, Maya felt the weight of her grandfather's legacy settle into its rightful place. The serial number R7729M no longer represented rejected innovation or classified curiosity. It had become the foundation for operational doctrine that expanded capability precisely when conventional approaches reached their absolute limitations. The methodology hadn't needed validation to be valid. It had simply waited for demonstration under conditions where its unique integration of human perception and technological extension created capability where none existed before. Not defying physics, but applying it differently when operational necessity demanded approaches beyond conventional parameters. As she turned to rejoin the operational planning for the next training cycle, Maya carried the quiet satisfaction of continuity. Her grandfather's vision hadn't died with institutional rejection. It had persisted through her dedication to methodology she knew was sound regardless of recognition. And now that methodology was saving lives in conditions previously considered impossible, exactly as he had intended all along. Different approach, different results. A legacy continued not through institutional authority, but through undeniable capability, demonstrated when conventional methods reached their absolute limitations. The impossible shot had become possible methodology, transforming operational barriers into navigable parameters through integrated perception that saw patterns within chaos rather than fighting against it. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.